lobby. Let's all go to the lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slaying, an It Slays podcast production where we break down the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your not-so-humble host, Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And today on the show, we're going to be reviewing M3GAN, which was released January 6, 2023, exclusively in theaters. And what better way to kick off a new year of Now Slaying than with a question? Rowan, you've said before that you're a fan of hitting the concession stands before heading into the theater, and you also happen to be Canadian, like myself. So before we get into the M3GAN discussion, I need to ask a very important question. What are your thoughts on Cineplex's poutine?
It's been a while. It's probably been a couple years since I had one. I don't remember it being that bad. It wasn't a go-to for me. I actually usually got, I thought their burgers were pretty good and their pizza.
Oh my God.
But where I am at now, our rural theater, only does popcorn, hot dogs, and nachos. They don't do anything else.
Yeah, they do like the classics, I guess, more so.
So, but if I head into the city, I'll usually do a pizza, just because I think it's obnoxious and funny when you just eat a whole pizza while watching a movie in a room full of people. I'm going to assume the poutine is not very good. What's your thought on it?
Yeah, so I've had Cineplex poutine all across Canada. And I mean, by all across Canada, I mean the eastern side of Canada. You know, I've had it in Nova Scotia. I've had it in Montreal. I've had it in Toronto. And there's one thing consistent about Cineplex poutine. It's garbage. It's absolute trash. And this has been a point of contention in our It Slays podcast messages behind the scenes. Jill, she was looking forward to the Cineplex poutine, and I kind of dunked on it a little bit, saying that it's undercooked fries and lumpy, you know, kind of cold gravy. And so, yeah, today when Mike, Jill, and myself went to the theater to watch M3GAN, Jill and I had a couple of poutine, and I have to say, it was god-awful. It was very bad, and Jill kind of looked over to me at one point, and I think she kind of had this feeling of that I ruined it for her. She was like, you're right. Like, this is awful. So, yeah, we basically ate about half our poutines, and that was it. It's just awful. I just had to make sure that we're taking a firm stance against the Cineplex poutine, at least from what we had today.
Again, yeah, you should, I guess, you're better off going to, New York fries or something beforehand.
Well, that's what I said, just New York fries or fucking KFC or Dairy Queen or something. All these places in Canada have poutine. I'm like, Cineplex poutine? That's what you go to?
Jill's
anyways,
I dirtbag.
Yeah, I just had to settle things, if we lose a co-host or two along the way, I guess that's just the cost of, doing business, of getting the truth out there. But I just had to take a firm stance, Now Slaying is not pro Cineplex poutine. Maybe we'll discuss it on the main show sometime, but yeah, it was bad.
What you're saying is, if we ever get our act together and, create our Discord community, the first question that will ever be asked will be long threads on Cineplex poutine.
Cineplex poutine, yay or nay? You say yay, you're just not a member of the community. That's it. That's it. That's how it goes. Okay, but now that we've got that out of the way, my real question to you, Rowan, were you looking forward to M3GAN?
So I was definitely interested. I mean, I feel like as a whole horror community, the trailer kind of hit with a vengeance. It kind of became viral super quick. I don't know if you remember, but I remember the first thing I saw of it is people are just like, oh my God, we have our new gay icon. And
oh, really? Okay.
Twitter was going crazy. And so I saw it. I mean, I'm always up for a killer doll, inanimate object movie. What about yourself?
I guess I wasn't in on the frenzy. I didn't see a whole lot about M3GAN other than a couple of gifs of her dancing, I think, and that was nearing as the movie released, within the last week or two. But what I would say is I was looking forward to it only in so much as that I knew it was an obvious pick for Now Slaying, so I was like, well, we're going to kick off the new year probably with M3GAN, and if it's terrible, it's terrible. That's it. We're going to probably wind up reviewing it anyways. But then also a friend of mine told me that it was James Wan's new movie. So as the listeners know, since I loved *Malignant* oh so much, I couldn't wait for what abomination James Wan would cook up next. But what I quickly found out was this wasn't directed by James Wan, and it actually wasn't that much of an abomination. So, I was looking forward to it, but what I'll say is I was surprised. And I guess before I get into the actual review, let's just kick it over to the trailer.
Hi, I'm Megan.
I designed Megan to protect Katie from feeling lonely. You're gonna pair with her.
It's insane, right? I won't let anything harm you. Megan! You should run.
What the hell was that?
Did Megan do something bad?
Hold the door! What are you?
I'm Megan.
M3GAN, rated PG-13.
What you just heard is from M3GAN, written by Kelly Cooper and directed by not James Wan, but in fact Gerard Johnstone, and the story is as follows. When brilliant toy company roboticist Gemma becomes the sole caretaker of her recently orphaned niece, Katie, she hastens the development of M3GAN, a lifelike doll programmed to emotionally bond with children. But when the doll's programming works a little too well, Katie and M3GAN's bond leads to terrifying results. Now, here on Now Slang, we like to keep things relatively spoiler-free up front before making it very clear when we're getting into the spoiler-filled discussion. So, Rowan, what are your spoiler-free thoughts on M3GAN?
I thought that this was interesting. It took some turns that I didn't think it was going to. It was a little more serious, I think, than I was expecting. The trailers were kind of silly. Now, going into this, the biggest thing is I wasn't aware that it was like a PG movie. Just because when I saw the trailer, I'm not paying attention to that kind of stuff. So I thought, okay, like we're going in, this is probably going to be a 14 or like an R movie maybe, like it's Blumhouse, so you never really know. Which I guess realistically maybe I should have because it's James Wan. So I feel like he's usually in that PG-14 range.
I feel like Malignant must have been R. Right? Like, there's way too much gore.
Malignant was R.
Yeah, okay.
And maybe it's just my association with James Wan in general. Like, I think when we did Malignant, I was a big fan of Malignant. But I've talked about many times, like, I'm not a huge James Wan guy.
Yeah, he makes really commercial horror, I guess, which usually is in the PG-13 range.
Yeah, and which is usually like stuff I'm really not into.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that sounded pretentious. Yeah, I thought this for a PG horror, this was it was pretty good. I had the privilege of when I went, actually everyone else there was younger than me, and by that I mean I think there might have been 15 of us, and I was the only one over the age of like 20.
Oh god, okay.
There was a lot of like 12 to 13 year olds in the theater, or what I'm assuming are 12 to 13 year olds, which I've talked about on other Now Slangs. Gets me super excited. No, that sounded creepy, but
Rowan likes being the only adult in a theater full of 12 to 13-year-olds.
Well, yeah. Whoops. No, but I've always said on the Now Slangs, like, one of the things I love about being in the theater is like seeing the reactions of others and like how the movie
the communal
scares them.
Experience.
Yeah. And this really interested me, being a film that's kind of aimed at that age demographic. So I'm like, oh, this is curious. I wonder how they're going to react to this. Basically, in my research, I've discovered that there's a good possibility 12 to 13-year-olds are just trash. I think most of them just spent the entire time Snapchatting the entire movie to people.
Oh, God.
So, but there was a lot of moments that, there was like some screams and some people going like, oh, holy shit. And like I said, I think that's because the tone is actually pretty serious. Like, just because the trailer's, dancing, and I don't even know, do they play any of the music in the trailer? I can't remember, but
I have no clue because I haven't seen the trailer.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, you'll know if you've listened to the episode and you listen to the trailer. But, I thought this was pretty good. And like I said, as someone that notoriously hates kind of horror, this PG, very, there's not a lot of blood in this. There's not everything's kind of implied, quick cuts. I thought it was pretty effective. I think the minimal budget, because I mean, obviously this is a Blumhouse production, so I'm going to assume the budget wasn't massive. M3GAN looked awesome, I thought.
Yeah, I think the budget was around 15 million, if I'm not mistaken, and that's probably largely in part just to, the CGI or the masking effect that they have to do for M3GAN's face to even work, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like a lot of these films, like there was definitely spots where I was like, this kind of looks not great, but for the most part, and I mean, I think as horror fans, we allow things that just look like shit. We don't care. It looked pretty good, and the characters were well developed, and things were pretty terrifying. I think that's all I'm really going to talk about till the spoiler discussion. But I would definitely,
sure.
I think I would recommend this for everybody. I think this is would be a great movie for if you have kids that are interested in horror. I don't think there's anything too crazy in this. Like I said, it's only rated like PG-13 or something. So, this would be good to take your kids to, or maybe even, I know some people that are going to go this weekend as like a date night movie to go see. Like, I think you could have a lot of fun with this. What are your spoiler-free thoughts, Colton? And would you recommend it?
Yeah, just to be clear, like this is still a PG-13 movie. It, there is like a curse word and there is like killing and stuff in it. It's not like you're gonna go and it's just this dour movie with a couple of dance scenes, But that being said, I did think the movie was far more competent than I expected, because I went in completely just with like, all right, this is a Blumhouse release around the beginning of the year. So I was thinking similar to Truth or Dare or Fantasy Island or something like that. And compared to those, this looks like Citizen Kane. Like, its tone, I would say, is probably its strongest point, which listeners of the show know that I usually have a lot of issue with campiness. A lot of time I can't really discern if it's actually the filmmaking itself kind of letting it down, so then they kind of turn to do it campy because they can't execute it seriously. This is what I will say. This basically makes it clear right from the jump what their cheesy and campy tones are. And then they also just walk the line between that and its horror, making it like a very enjoyable movie overall. I also think M3GAN is a good slasher character. Her motivations, her limitations, her capabilities are pretty well established in the movie. And I think in the hands of the right filmmaker, she could even be scary. Now, was she ever scary to me in this movie? No, not really, put her in shadow all you want or make her move herky-jerky. It's wasn't that scary, but I do think if this character were to be brought back in horror, sequels, or, if there was variations of her, or like even like a Chucky crossover or something wild, crazier things have happened, I can see the character being a little unsettling. It does firmly exist in that uncanny valley area, and even moments when kind of the CGI and whatnot slip, I think it kind of adds to the character if her eyes are kind of looking a little bit wonky or they're cross-eyed or whatnot. First of all, once again, it's a movie that's a little bit inherently silly, so I chuckled at it whenever it was off. I was kind of like, whatever, it doesn't really take me out of it, unlike most times when CGI is off. That being said, if they were to continue in this universe, I definitely think a sequel needs to be R-rated. And I'm not the blood and gore guy. That's Rowan. But this movie felt like especially toothless to me. The body count is definitely in the single digits, and apart from one shot that is literally like blink and you'll miss it, the movie is basically bloodless. I think by adding gore, the film could create like a harsher contrast between its campy, cheesier, more melodramatic moments and the horror, and I think perhaps they could create like a lot stronger movie by doing that. Because right now, like I said, they're walking a tightrope, and they're walking a very, almost what you'd say is an easy tightrope, because they're not really dipping too far one way or the other, and I just think it could be a little bit stronger. Possibly, it could also wind up being a complete mess. Like, it'll take a better filmmaker to execute that balance. But overall, like, I thought it was pretty well done. And you kind of touched on this as well, that it feels a little bit serious, which I also agree with, that it takes a long time to get going. Yeah. Like, from what I've gathered from you, the marketing in the movie is probably a lot more energetic and silly and leaning into the dancing and stuff. I'm going to say it takes probably upwards of 30 minutes before M3GAN is, like, officially introduced. And then before, like, a kill even happens, you're probably upwards of an hour. So you know, for a lot of modern slashers or a lot of modern horror movies even, I don't know if audiences are really used to sitting an hour before really there's too much of even like a kill, like, and once again, the movie isn't doing hardcore kills, so it's like something that it's going to cut away from before it's even too scary anyways, right? So, it's the type of thing where it probably worked out to the benefit of the movie of actually like establishing the cast and establishing M3GAN and the motivations there and whatnot. But since we're a horror movie podcast, I just figured I'd let our listeners know that this is a crowd pleaser. But if you're not into the cheesier, more melodramatic moments, if you can't like sit and you're just there to see blood and gore, this one's probably not for you. But shockingly enough, I will give it a recommend as well. I think if you go with a few friends or if you see it in a crowd, the right crowd, you'll probably have a good time. And this time of year especially, unless you're going to see the Oscar fair, if you're going to see new releases this time of year, you could probably do a hell of a lot worse than M3GAN.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, so before we say too much else, let's just cut on over to this spoiler discussion. All right, we are now in the spoiler discussion for M3GAN. So if you haven't seen the movie, make sure to turn this off or pause it until you came back from the theater and checked it out. Rowan, is there anything right off the top of your head that you want to get into in the spoiler discussion? I have a few notes, but I figured, I'd kick it on over to you first.
I wanted to say that, I think the stakes kind of go up in this. I was actually pretty surprised at kind of our first M3GAN kill, I guess, with the kid in the woods.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I really, really enjoyed it. I guess because, like we said, going into this, I was kind of like, oh, what, how far are we gonna go? Like, is the first thing I'm really gonna see is this, like, doll dancing at some point, or, give me some goofy thing. But, like, I thought that wood scene was excellent. Like, perfect setup, like, shitty, kind of a little bit older than all the other kids, boy that's just a piece of shit. His mom, I was laughing out loud at his mom. I thought she was hilarious.
Oh, yeah, that was great. Yeah, where she kind of, like, cuts in and he curses at her or whatever.
Yeah.
And goes on. It's good.
Yeah, where M3GAN kind of, like, has the chase in the woods. Like, great, just the pose and her running like the wild animal at him. And, like, I really did, like, feel the tension build up there. But then the whole, she grabs his ear and, like, starts stretching his ear out.
Stretching them, yeah.
And it was, like, this perfect mixture of, like, the stretch was really campy, but it was all, like, it also wasn't so camp that it, I think for a certain age, it wouldn't be, like, kind of, like, gross and terrifying. And I think it also set up a pretty good stakes for the movie, where I was like, okay, like, we're pretty much gonna start off this, like, kill, this doll's killing streak with, like, murdering a child, which I thought was kind of an interesting move, because it would have been really easy to just, have this doll kill shitty adults that, like, interfere with, is it Katie, I think was the,
Yeah, Katie's the little girl.
Katie's life. But, like, no, we're just gonna, let's fucking kill a kid right off the bat of the murder spree.
Well, even right before that, which is maybe what you were just about to get into, about 10 minutes before that, they actually killed the dog.
I know, I was waiting.
I made a note. Rowan stood up and cheered.
Now, wait, anyone listening, I want you to sit down, because I'm about to shock you. I was actually sad at this dog's death.
Oh, my God. All right, I'm writing that on the calendar.
Yeah, probably the first time ever. I felt bad. I thought the dog was kind of cute. I was like, the dog's, like, really not that shitty. I was like, it barks, but I was like, that's really it. Like, I guess it's shitting on her.
It mauled a kid, but
well,
it's not that bad.
I'm just kind of thinking, the dog, there's a dog there and stuff. Maybe don't stick your hand, like, in the fence.
Good point.
But, yeah, this was the one time, because I was just kind of like, the dog was just laying there. It's not like the dog was, like, attacking Katie at the moment when M3GAN, like, kills the dog.
Blurted out, yeah.
Like you said, that was what I was going to bring up, is, like, for a PG-13 movie, like, yeah, we kill a dog and we kill a kid to start off with. Like, Jesus, is this fucking Serbian film or something? Like, what's...
Okay.
What's going on?
Probably not a Serbian film, but I get what you're saying, yeah.
what's going
on
here?
Hardcore.
I feel like the dog, like you automatically are like, there's no way they're killing a dog in this like PG horror movie. But like I said, these were all great things to kind of set up stakes and be like, you know what, like Megan's actually, you know, gonna hurt some people and it's gonna be a little uncomfortable. I was all for that neighbor getting it. Fuck that neighbor.
Oh yeah, it was a very annoying, overbearing neighbor for sure.
Which was kind of weird though, because at the beginning it kind of gave me the vibe that I was like, I thought maybe the neighbor and the other, like the aunt, were kind of friendly. They seemed to like kind of tease each other in the beginning, and
well, that's the thing. I don't think it was actually teasing, which is the weird thing. Like I think Gemma was actually like annoyed with it, but it can be read either way, where it's like, you know, she's like, I don't have time for this right now. I'm taking the bags out of the car type of thing. Where he's like, oh, they're cheeky. But I think she was like dead serious. Where she was like, I don't have time for this right now. You know? I don't want to talk about this.
And I was going to say, I guess I feel like today it's just time to shock listeners. Another one, Violet McGraw that plays Katie. I actually liked her. Good kid acting, I thought. I thought she was pretty good.
Well, we'll probably disagree on this point.
Yeah.
I it's not that I necessarily thought she was bad. It's just I think all of the acting in this movie was fairly underwhelming. Like I just thought it was all fine. Like nobody surprised me really, other than I guess you can go with the actress that plays Megan herself, that Amy Donald, like the fact that she actually has to walk like very robotic and wooden, and like obviously there's aspects of like contorting her body a little bit and trying to look creepy, I guess, that maybe I'd give the nod to her. But even what's her name, Allison Williams, I thought she was fine in the movie, but honestly it was so uncanny for me the entire movie. I just thought she was Jennifer Connelly, because in my head when I pictured Jennifer Connelly from the mid 2000s, it looks exactly like Allison Williams in this movie. And the entire time I was like, I just saw Jennifer Connelly in Top Gun Maverick. Like, it can't be her. Like, she has, you know, she's still a beautiful woman, but like she's older. I know she is. So it was just very uncanny when I was watching her. But yeah, for me, like, I don't know, specific performances like the boss at the company,
Ronnie Chan.
Funzy, was that the name of the company?
Yeah, Funzy. The character's name was David. The actor's Ronnie Chan.
Okay. For me, like, I understand what he was trying to do. He was trying to be an insufferable like tech boss, but it was just like so over the top and cheesy. And I guess that's the aspects to me where it's like maybe campiness doesn't work for me too well, because a lot of the performances just seemed very silly or over the top, you know. Obviously, Allison Williams has to work with a little bit more, as does Sam Delich, who plays Katie. Like, they have to do a little bit more.
Allison Williams, It's Lay's podcast, OG. She was one of the stars of The Perfectionist.
Also, I just said Sam Delich plays Katie. As we've already said, it's Violet McGraw plays Katie. But yes, Allison Williams, yeah, in The Perfectionist. Yeah, for me, spoiler-filled discussions, what I wanted to kind of mention right off the bat is I kind of alluded to this in the spoiler-free discussion, but the opening commercial of Perpetual Pets.
Yes.
I knew right from that this movie was going to be relatively good. And the reason why is because this executes on what Malignant couldn't, which it lets you know right off the top what sort of movie you're in, and that the film is firmly tongue-in-cheek, that it knows what it's doing, and this is supposed to be cheesy and cheeky to a certain degree. It's like winking at the audience. Malignant starts out with a sequence that could be traditional horror, or it could be cheesy, like on a TV, like over the top, and the movie doesn't let you know. I thought that sequence in Malignant was a commercial or a cheesy movie. This actually is a commercial, and it is letting you know that it's cheesy, and it's perfect right down to the corporate branding and the fine print and the voiceover. So I was very much like, yes, I know now firmly what movie we are in, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was basically a completely accurate commercial to that time that they were going for, other than the fact that there's dead pets in the commercial, obviously. But I thought it was very cute. I was like, oh, these rip-off Furbies, you know, obviously that was a lot of fun.
I was kind of interested if like a younger audience would understand the reference to Furbies, because I was like, are those so far away that like a kid wouldn't really know what a Furby is?
Yes, like no millennial knows what a Furby is, but did they laugh, or was there any reaction at all to like these, whatever they were, there in the...
You know my answer, it's no, because they were too busy Snapchatting the movie.
No. Got it. Well, I mean, to me, right off the bat, it was a little bit irritating how much they were going for, like, the poop and fart jokes, I guess, in the car ride. But I was like, it's also a kid that's operating the thing. They probably would just make it fart all the time, if we're being honest. So yeah, I just knew right away that I was in a competent movie, I guess, from that. One of the biggest laughs in the movie for me was when M3GAN acapellas Titanium to kind of like cheer up Katie at a point. And God, like all three of us, myself, Jill, and Mike, we burst out laughing, and our entire audience was burst out laughing too. Like, you know, and we probably had 15, 20 people, similar to yourself, but we had like a good makeup that it was just like older people, younger people all over the place. But yeah, we were all cracking up laughing. And I think that's another moment in the movie where it lets you know, okay, if you never got it from the commercial, and if you never got it from the first singing sequence or a little bit of dancing, it's like, you have to know by now that this is like, they know it's cheesy and hokey and like, you know, melodramatic for her to be singing Titanium. Like, yeah, it just really worked for me. I thought it was hilarious. I'm just kind of looking at my notes, but the only other spoiler-filled things I have are kind of negatives. I don't know. You got anything else before we want to get into the negatives on the movie a little bit?
Well, I was going to say another positive for me, I can't, you know, obviously this is probably something I'm going to have to watch again. I can't think of the name, but like the OG robot design, like
yeah, Bruce.
His
name was in the movie. Yeah.
I thought like normally stuff like that, like, you know, and that was kind of the thing with this movie is that there's a lot of things that I normally wouldn't like in a movie that I just really thought worked. And that was one of the things I thought worked.
You were having an off day, man. This is wild.
Know. Like, I thought it was kind of like added this like sincerity to the end where like Bruce comes in, like, even though it's controlled by Katie, like,
yeah,
it's still like, you know, Bruce is this character of like the OG robot, like hulking, and even the design build I thought was like very sympathetic. It was like endearing, and my audience reacted to that. Like when Bruce just starts fucking beating the shit out of M3GAN, people were just like, yeah, like Bruce. And I was just like, I need a spinoff. I need a Bruce spinoff of M3GAN. Although I feel like there's so many things Blumhouse could do with this. I know Blumhouse has been very attached to wanting to buy like all these old horror franchises. And so I'm just like, are you gonna buy Chucky? And are we gonna get the most camp film of all time, possibly more camp than Freddy versus Jason, and that's M3GAN versus Chucky?
Yeah, that's what I said in the spoiler, you know, free stuff. I would like to see that in terms of very campy and cheesy and, you know, some good kills in it, but obviously M3GAN has to come out on top in the end. I mean, I'd be upset if Chucky won, so. Did you catch, actually, since we're on the note of Chucky, did you catch when her face gets smushed in, and for like a split second near the end when Bruce smushes her face in, it looks identical to Chucky for like a couple of frames?
Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah. And then I assumed that it might have just been like a little shout out saying we see you.
Yeah, 100% it was. Yeah, it was definitely intentional. And yeah, I kind of like the Rock'em Sock'em robot fight at the end. Like, obviously it was so like not choreographed, sorry. It was foreshadowed. Like, we 100% knew that was going to happen when they showed like, look, we control the robot's hands with these gloves. Like, you know, I knew it was coming, but it was hype. I'm not going to lie. I was like, this is good. And as someone who spent like a year and a half writing a young girl and a robot sci-fi story, somewhat begrudgingly, just because it did well in a couple of competitions, I'm going to say that I did like seeing the young girl and the robot kind of fight side by side. It was good. I enjoyed it. It's, you know, it's, I agree. I thought Bruce was a cool design, very minimal, kind of hulking. But when they kind of put the face on him, you know, in the beginning, I'm like, yeah, that looks like something someone could be friends with. So I liked it as well. The one thing that I have left to discuss before we get into the rating is that I was a little bit let down by the corporate launch event, which is maybe
exactly
a weird...
the same as me.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to say, but they kind of put a lot of effort in the movie to building up this launch for M3GAN. They're like building crowds. They're getting everybody around. And honestly, all it winds up being is about like 5 seconds of chaos. And the elevator shot, which is what I was alluding to, is probably the one bloody or semi-gory moment of the movie. You get a very quick shot of the elevator that has a bit of blood in it and the two bodies of the CEO and his assistant. And I was just kind of like, it would have been really fun to see either the two killings, or maybe even a couple more at the event, make the news and then inadvertently make M3GAN more popular or a more viral sensation. You know, you could have people like recording it and stuff like that at the event.
Yeah.
Or you could have did something where there was a scheduled social media posts and videos already prematurely recorded, like, and all scheduled and ready to go. And then it could have, you know, they could have went out anyways, despite like the actual, you know, the plan to launch M3GAN is now like on the back burner, is not happening anymore. But, you know, the posts and stuff going out could build enough hype and excitement that it's kind of like sequel bait, where it's like, well, maybe the company's going to move forward and go ahead and launch it anyways. You know, there was avenues they could have went that made that ending with the corporate launch pay off more. And they just didn't. They like basically, I don't know why they built it up at all, kind of as my vibe. It was a very rushed is what it felt like to me.
Yeah, this is where I thought the movie it was very glaring that it could have used a bump up in the rating, so they could have done more stuff. Yeah. You know, this is when we're getting like the M3GAN dance stuff and her with the paper cutter, which was like an awesome image. But I was like you said, like, you know, let's get a little more mayhem, her killing some more people, you know, for that build up to pay off. Also, one of the plot points I did have an issue with was the stuff with, I think it was Kurt, the assistant,
stealing the corporate secrets.
Yeah, like stealing the corporate secrets. They didn't really need it in it. I mean, you could have just had Kurt as, you know, this weird, mild-mannered assistant, and that was it. And he's gonna die when they kill the CEO. I was like, we have this whole thing about like, oh, he was stealing corporate secrets, and it was also kind of like, well, he may not be leaking them. It's just to see if he could do it.
Yeah.
I was just like, this really doesn't matter.
Yeah, basically the only purpose of even having that in the movie at all. I mean, you never even had to make, what is it, Kurt or Kirk?
Yeah, anyways, Kurt, I think.
Okay, either way, you didn't even have to really make him a character, honestly. He's in the movie for a Pornhub joke, basically to say like, oh, are you browsing porn at work again? And he's like, happens to be stealing corporate secrets. And for M3GAN to kind of have, I guess, to kind of show how sinister she is about how she can kind of, she knows that he's stealing corporate secrets, and basically she's using him as the fall guy to killing his boss and like making it look like he killed his boss and committed suicide, which I guess is also a way about how you can maybe get away with M3GAN not being the one that killed the two people in the elevator. So there could be sequel stuff, or there could be stuff where the doll is popular and not connected to the killings. But yeah, realistically, it's kind of a dead plot line. I agree with you. That never really rubbed me, but I agree that it's the way it's fleshed out is basically not really much of a payoff.
What did you think of, you know, the kind of wink ending there with the home robot?
That's another one that's obviously set up because she's controlling the home through the home security system, through the Alexa or whatever it is. Apologies if I made anyone's system go off. But I didn't really like it that much. Once again, it's just a weaker option, in my opinion. You could have went with showing these social media posts going viral. You could have went with the company kind of ignoring and sweeping under the rug these two deaths and still deciding to launch the robot. You could have went with some weird-ass thing where M3GAN's at a landfill and somehow she comes back online or something. Like, you could have went a bunch of different directions that, in my opinion, would have been more fun and maybe not even like quite as abrupt as the way it ends, because the way it ends with essentially that home hub coming back online, like it wasn't really that satisfying to me. It wasn't even like a great shot. I understand that it was in the middle of the frame, but it was like there's just a lot of different ways I thought it was going to end.
Yeah.
And the fact, before we started recording this, I googled up like, was there an after credit scene, because we left like after a couple of minutes, and there isn't. It just feels like a missed opportunity for me. It's you should have went ahead and tried to do sequel bait with this one. I think at the end, the tone and the type of movie it is like perfect to kind of tease like, hey, we're gonna do a sequel, or we'll get a sequel. And even if it never comes, let's say the movie fell flat on its face, it's still like it would have been a better ending for this type of movie, in my opinion. What about yourself? Did you like that ending? Or
I didn't hate it. Like, obviously I think they thought that was setting them up for a sequel, saying, hey, M3GAN's still in the ether. And it does, but like you said, I think like this a
non-corporeal version of M3GAN, like that's boring, right?
I think this is campy enough, like you said, that I would have liked to see a more campier sequel bait set up, where any other movie I'd be like groaning or whatever, but this I'd be like, oh yeah, like this is totally in line with what this film's got going on.
100%. Now, you got any other notes, anything left to address before we just get into rating this guy?
No, I think that's everything.
So if you're new to the podcast, our review rubric is nay, okay, yay, or slay. So Rowan, what would you give M3GAN?
So I'm going to give it a yay. I really enjoyed it. You know, I think this is something I'd revisit. This is something I can see, like, if I'm with people hanging out or even by myself, and I just kind of wanted to have a fun, good time. You know, when this comes out, I'd watch it, like, on a 4K or a Blu-ray or whatever. And, you know, I think you would do pretty good going to see this in the theater. Like I said, I know a lot of people that want to go see it or are going to see it, and I think it's kind of perfect for any situation to go see it. I think you could definitely do worse with your money, and it's a good enough time that I don't think you're gonna come out unsatisfied. What would you rate it, Colton?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'd give it a yay. When I left the theater, I was not 100% sure if I'd give it an okay or a yay, but kind of looking at just my scores on other things, you know, I did have a good time with this movie. There's not really too many issues I have with it. Like I said, the few issues I do have are more so on missed opportunities than actually shortcomings of the movie.
Yeah.
It's more so like, oh, it wasn't an R rating, or, oh, I wish there was sequel bait at the end. It's not like, you know, oh, all of the writing was awful, or like all the performances are downright awful, or it's so cripplingly boring, like a lot of things are. So yeah, I give it a yay. I think it makes good on what most people are looking for. I do think it's a little bit slow to start, but I think M3GAN is a pretty fun slasher villain. I like the execution of it, and yeah, all in all, this was one of those ones that's obviously campy and cheesy and whatever other adjectives you want to use, but also horror. And yeah, it worked for me this time. I enjoyed it. And weirdly enough, I think we actually have a couple of messages. We don't put out a call for a horrific hotline on this show, but Jill and Mike both wanted to be on this recording and couldn't be just due to different, you know, social reasons. So I think they've recorded a quick little snippet of their thoughts on the movie. So let's throw it over to Jill.
M3GAN is a great feast for the eyes. Great casting, even though the main character child, Katie, in the movie is absolutely unbearable. Great birth control. That's probably the scariest part of the film, to be honest. But in all seriousness, though, super fun movie with lots of laughs. If you take it at face value as a fun movie, it's great. If you're expecting anything more, though, you'll be disappointed. I give it a yay.
Cool. So, yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with Jill. It seems that she didn't like Katie's performance either, which weirdly enough worked for you. Like, once again, a weird Rowan thing. But
I must have been in a good mood, so.
All right. Now, I think we'll throw it over to Mike's, which you said is a lot shorter, I think.
M3GAN, more like Mother Slay.
That's not even clever, Mike. Mother Slay? All right. I thought we were going to have more than that from Mike, but thankfully we have his words here in his Letterboxd review, which it says, "A feat of modern camp. The Invisible Man and Terminator retooled for film cigarettes," if you catch what I'm saying. I don't know if I do catch what you're saying, Mike, but, you know, I think I at least get your vibe. You gave it 4 stars, which is insane. If this was Rowan's Letterboxd, it'd be the same as Jaws, which, you know, I liked M3GAN. I don't know if it's Jaws level.
It'll be remembered as a classic.
Jaws or M3GAN?
M3GAN. It'll overshadow Jaws.
Wow. And, yeah, I guess if you made it this far in the show and you have no clue who Mike is, that means you must not watch our main show, which you you should be doing, but also you could follow us at It Slays Podcast, you know, to figure out when those episodes are dropping. So we're on Instagram, we're on Letterboxd, we're on Facebook, Twitter, I don't know, Slasher. Is there anything else I'm forgetting? Basically, if it's a social media site, we're there at It Slays Podcast. And Rowan, go ahead and plug the playlist.
So if you're into music from horror movies in general, go to It Slays Podcast, horrific playlist on Spotify. You can search it if you have problems finding it. The link tree in any of our social media, there's a link to it, but we upload music from movies that we review or movies we love or iconic horror movies. And it doesn't have to just be the score. It can be songs that remind us of the movies. I don't know, maybe Titanium makes the cut as some LOLs in this playlist. We'll have to convene and see what the vote is on that one. But yeah, go check it out and get your spooky music on.
Yeah, I know Mike and Jill said they were fans of the soundtrack. Honestly, oftentimes I don't notice the soundtrack. I notice if it's bad, pretty much. Not if it's good a lot of the time. I'm not a big fan of pop music anyway, so this one wouldn't have done too much for me other than, once again, that Titanium needle drop being sung a cappella. It was hilarious. But anyways, next time on the show, it currently looks like it's going to be Sick, like the movie Sick, which is premiering next week on Peacock. I think we're still flirting with the idea of doing Skinamarink as well, so I think that comes out in wide release next week as well in theaters. But yeah, more to come on that. So who knows? Maybe we'll have a couple of new episodes heading your way. At the very least, we're on the books to record Sick. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that one. And with that, I think that about wraps things up this week. So until next time, I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And as long as you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.